I think it's really important that you're talking about this information now because, especially because of everything that's coming out in the mainstream. We've got, celebrities channeling aliens, all kind of craziness that's just been popping up in our mainstream collective consciousness over the past few years because of what they're seemingly intentionally putting out. You have
Yeah.
mixed messages coming from our own government about UFOs, from our own media.
Mhm.
We had this UAP report come out the other day. So they're obviously wanting to put this in the human consciousness that aliens exist, and it's becoming a rather large thing. I don't think it's getting the reaction that's expected from it. I think that more people are kind of ready to learn that we're not alone than originally thought, but that's just my opinion. But you're right. I think there is nefarious agendas at play. There's a bunch of, I guess you could say, different infighting factions when it comes to ufology in general. Even in our own community, we have people that are spreading disinformation. I think that
Yes.
there are people intentionally planted in this community to spread disinformation and
Yes.
misinformation. Um,
Yes.
so we're in confusing times or in fascinating times. I'd like to know what's really going on behind this, or at least as much as you've come to understand through your channeling, through the extraterrestrial sources that you've actually made contact with, and I guess as far as we can go from there.
All right. Well, I'll do the best that I can. And I realize this is quite a leap for most people. And even people who think of themselves as kind of savvy, they've read a lot of books, they watch a lot of things on the internet, they follow certain people and certain websites that probe these things and feel they're informed. I'm here to tell you it's very likely that much of what you've learned is false information that's being used for this big manipulation. So here's kind of the problem in a nutshell. Extraterrestrials came to the Earth millions and millions of years ago. They've been present all through the existence of humanity on the planet, except for a very short period at the very beginning, when humans were first installed after the Earth was configured to be what Creator calls a loving nest. And they've been here ever since to enslave us, to manipulate and downgrade us. And they have been here working behind the scenes, using us as playthings just to have fun. It's like a video game, except you're using real, live, sentient beings you manipulate through mind control, get them to do goofy things against their own interests, and then you can laugh at them and see how you do, how successful you are. And you can maybe have them go to war with one another. And your buddy takes one side, you take the other side. I'll be the Western nations, you can have the Eastern nations, and we'll do a world war. Won't that be fun? I'll bet I can beat you, with my tanks and my blitzkrieg strategies or whatever it might be. This is what's happening. It sounds preposterous, but if you're an extraterrestrial being who's been there and done it, seen it all, you have a civilization that's almost 5 billion years old, and you have been so corrupted by spirit attachments that you're now all uniformly sociopaths. You're part of a culture that cannot love, has no compassion, even for their own kind. They live through power and for power. That's all they have. And the only thing that gives them happiness and enjoyment is holding power over others, fighting to keep it, or jostling for position to take it away from someone else. So they live in a very tough world that's dog eat dog. And they prey on other worlds. Many civilizations have been annihilated by these beings. I'm talking, first of all, about the Anunnaki. They are the oldest of these corrupt extraterrestrials that are messing with us. And so everything has flowed from there. They're in our realm. They have outposts here. There are some beings present in very large numbers. There are 3 races of extraterrestrials in an alliance, and they tolerate one another and help this kind of enterprise. And in addition, one of those races, the Arcturians, developed the alien grays. These are the most familiar ET because they're the most ubiquitous. And there's a zillion of these robotic beings. They're not like us. They're not soul-based beings. They're an artificial intelligence. And they're pretty intelligent at this point. Enough so they want to have some human characteristics. They've taken this up as a quest. And they were indulged by their Arcturian masters to let them abduct humans and experiment on us, do genetic modification to see what will happen, learn from it. And they have developed an actual hybrid being that's based on their own DNA. These robots, they're a DNA-based technology without the soul connection. And they mate with humans and incorporate human DNA into a hybrid. They've been working on this for thousands of years now, and they've got hybrids that are pretty sophisticated who can pass for human now. And that's their goal. And they want to eventually have the planet for themselves. But first, they want to learn how to reincarnate like we do. They're smart enough to know there's something we can do that they can't. When they wear out, break down, whatever, that's it. They're sent to the trash heap. And, there's many more that can be built on command. And so, but as an individual entity, they know they will perish one day, forever. We do not. They're jealous. They want that for themselves. And so they want to keep studying us. But they're the only ones at this point who want us still around. This is a very dangerous turn of events. And it happened within this last century, and mostly within the last decades. They've decided they want to be done with this mess. They're tired of herding these troubled humans, these troubling humans around, because we're so independent minded. And we tend to thwart their efforts in some mysterious way. They think it's our mind, somehow our consciousness has a capability. When we get together in groups, we can have a certain power. And they're tired of trying to overcome that and figure it out and whatnot. They don't realize what that really is the divine realm backstopping us, that we're calling on through prayer largely. And so the problem with their decision that they want to be done with us is, as a parting shot, they're prepared to annihilate everyone living, end the race, be done totally. And that's slated to happen within the next 5 years. So it gives me no pleasure relaying this. This is probably the worst thing you will ever hear. And, it's because of me. So I'm very sorry that we're in this mess, but I didn't create it. I'm only the reporter. I stumbled on this and probed into it at length. And it took me years to learn this from the divine. They wanted me to be close to the answer before they really came forthright in spelling this out and the implications.
Now, I think one thing that we should address for the audience is when you say you're channeling the divine, and you're referring to source, or some people call it God. How did you know 100% that that is what you were channeling and that you were not being deceived?
That is a very difficult question to answer. It took me years of skepticism and doubt to reach this level, because every step along the way, as I had doubt, there would be a little bit less that I would get from them in the way of corroboration, confirmation. Why? They have to follow human intention. It's one of the rules of engagement. When the divine is dealing with humanity, we're in charge. We're in charge of the world, if you hadn't noticed, or we think we are. God isn't running it. It's humans. And they're being manipulated in many ways to degrade the performance and make it worse. But God is watching, God is listening, God is within all of us and available to us. But we have to ask. We also have to believe in God 100%. That's not easy for most people. We also have to believe in ourselves 100%, that we're worthy of divine support. It was easier for me to start out at the level of an archangel. I never had the idea of channeling God. It just seemed too wildly improbable and impossible, because we've been told this, you can't get near God. The energy's too big. It would likely kill you outright if you were in God's presence. You couldn't handle it if you tried to deal with it directly. This is some of the propaganda that's been done. It turns out God is gentle and loving in dealing with us and interacting with us, and helps us all the time, even little children and infants, in a very nurturing and caring way. That shouldn't be so shocking to people. But this is an example of the disinformation that's gotten into religion. Like God is judgmental, God is jealous, God is harsh and demanding, and will punish you if you disappoint, if you get too big for your britches or whatever, you'll get smacked down. And well, there is a force to reckon with misdeeds. That's the law of karma, but that runs on autopilot. So that's another complex discussion. All right, so you asked me, how do I know? Well, I came to believe in this voice through the archangels over a long span of time. For one thing, I have no one to guide me with this. I mean, who is an authority that can tell you and prove to you that this paradigm is even real? The channelers are actually getting something outside themselves. Science still doesn't believe in extrasensory perception, not as a formal tenet of scientific thought. There are people who do a little research on it. So I had to convince myself, very much a skeptic, that first of all, this is something that's not me. It's not a part of my own mind. That wasn't too hard, because I would learn things every time in asking questions I didn't know. So that's pretty good evidence, because, I can put together a pretty thoughtful, incisive question. I can think deeply about things, and eventually I can get an intuitive sense, maybe, and end up close to the truth of things without really getting any outside information if I work at it and leave myself open. And of course, really what's happening is my higher self and maybe creator are giving me some insight along the way. But that's available to everyone. That's where your gut hunches and your inner instinct comes from. It's from your guidance, principally your higher self, sometimes spirit guides who are accompanying you and helping you with your life plan and so on. Though those paradigms are true and accurate,